Every bike is one less car.
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 Look how many of us there are.
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 And really, it's a snowy day in December. Look how many of us there are. Thank you all so much for coming today. We know it's really cold, but it's not as cold as Doug Ford's heart. So we're gonna start off with a little musical performance.
Yeah!
There's actually a climate change after this song, but you know what. A is for action, let's hear it ring. Before the bravery to make it sing. C for the challenge, now let it begin. D for the danger that we all are in. Derry down, 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 derry down. That part you can sing with me if you want. Derry down, 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 derry down. E for extinction on earth where we dwell. F for the fires, the flames of hell. G for the goodness that guides from within. H for the hope and the help that we bring. Derry down, 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 derry down. Derry down, 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 derry down. I for ideas which we all can share. J for the journey from here to there. K for koala, our canary in the mine. L for the land, is it yours, is it mine? Derry down, 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 derry down. M is for money, the root of much woe, and for the natural world where we grow. Oh, for the obligation to know. P is for plastics, lasting to go. Derry down, 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 derry down. Q is for questions, no status quo now. R for the rebels and the rabble they rouse. S is for selfishness, can we let go? T for our time here and for tomorrow. Derry down, 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 derry down, derry down, 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 derry down. Thank you.
so much for that. My name is Alex. I'm going to be emceeing today. And I first want to pass it along to Yi to do a land acknowledgement.
Hi everyone, my name is Yi. Before we get things started, let's do a land acknowledgement. So, the land we are on is called Etobicoke, or Idobicon, an Ojibwe word that means where the elders grow. This land is defined by the rivers to the east and west, the Etobicoke Creek and the Humber River, the original modes of transportation here. The land has been home to indigenous people, the Mississaugas, Anishinaabe, Nguyengat, Haudenosaunee, and more, for thousands and thousands of years. I would like to extend my gratitude for their stewardship of the land, and for all these years. The indigenous people of this land have been and continue to be targeted by colonial oppression and cultural genocide from the Canadian government. And we must all commit to understanding the impacts of settler colonialism and fight back against the government and corporations that often do not recognize the indigenous people of Turtle Island. Our roads are a part of that. Our suburban sprawl is part of attacking the land and covering it in cement. Bill 212 is just the latest example, and covering with a twisted, corrupt government trying to start construction on the useless Highway 413 before Indigenous consultation. And this completely flies in the face of the principle of free, prior, and informed consent of Indigenous people to the development projects on their land. It goes to show that this country and its governments are far from reconciliation and are still actively attacking the rights of Indigenous peoples.
Take Duck to federal courts!
We must recognize that, and we must fight back accordingly, standing in solidarity with the original inhabitants of this land. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we really need to recognize that Highway 413, just like ripping out bike lanes, is a massive waste of money that is not even going to help with traffic. And with Bill 212, the government will be able to start construction without even assessing the damage it will cause. Shame! I now want to welcome up Gabrielle, another youth climate activist with Fridays for Future Toronto.
Alrighty. So my name is Gabrielle, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about why bike lanes actually solve traffic and why they're overall good for the community. So I'm not gonna lie, we all hate traffic. Yes, we do. And we are all looking for solutions, but removing bike lanes will never be the solution and has never been the solution. A lot of people believe, including the Ford government, that by adding more bike lanes, we're actually going to reduce traffic congestion. But studies from around Canada, including Montreal and Vancouver, have proven that the exact opposite is actually true. Wider roads give people the false sense of a faster travel time. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. This encourages more people to hop into their cars instead of actually looking for alternative means of transportation and travel. Additionally, with bike lanes removed and with no areas for cyclists to travel safely, a lot of cyclists are forced to jump into their cars instead. Exactly. This means that there's going to be even more vehicles on the roads, and more cars actually equals just as much or even more traffic, despite the extra space. Some facts: a single car lane can only accommodate up to 600 or 900 cars per hour. That's roughly 900 to 800 people only, where a two-way bike lane can actually accommodate up to 7,500 people per hour. Plus, it also takes up less space as well. So, what's more, the removal of bike lanes is not going to stop cyclists. It really isn't. And while some might switch to their cars for safety, a lot of people are still going to be using the roads with their bikes. But with no, yeah, exactly. Woo! Yeah. But with no bike lanes, bikers are actually at a greater risk now. Bike lanes, exactly, yeah, yay. bike lanes are ways for cyclists to travel safely from one point to the next. With no bike lanes, they're forced to ride right alongside cars, or even into the traffic lanes themselves just to get to their destination. Without the separation and protection of bike lanes, both cyclists and drivers are constantly forced to react to avoid collisions, which leads to even more traffic accidents, and more congestion. Actually, according to Toronto Police Services, bike lanes actually greatly reduce collisions and actually increase safety. Of course, some might argue that to fix this problem and to make it more safe for cyclists, maybe they should just jump in their cars, right? But, as I mentioned before, that's just going to make congestion worse, isn't it? More cars. Yep. And here's another fun fact. Did you actually know that bike lanes are actually economically beneficial to their areas as well? So in the UK, in London, a lot of areas that were actually tailored for biking pedestrians and cyclists, there was actually like a 30% increase in retail sales in that area. Where bike parking was prioritized over car parking, some businesses saw as much as 5 times the retail spenders per meter. Even on Bloor Street, where we're actually slated to have bike lanes removed. A lot of businesses actually reported that they had way more customers than before the bike lanes were installed. And of course, let's not forget about the climate benefits of having more bikes on the road. 1.1 pounds of carbon dioxide per mile. That's how much a car emits. You want to know how much a bike emits? Zero.
Depends on how hard you breathe.
In a world ravaged by a climate emergency, where millions of people suffer life-threatening situations daily, every little bit of relief is not only welcomed, it is critical. To move forward, whether it be for traffic congestion, for community safety, or for climate change solutions, every solution we find has to truly address the problems. Band-aid fixes like removing bike lanes may appear to address the crises, but they ignore the true problems at the core of our community. If the Ford government truly is our ally, they need to work with us, community members like you and me, and collaborate every step of the way. Not just for today, but for tomorrow and for every day to come. My hope is that one day I will see a government at all levels that truly puts the needs of the people first.
So let's tell Christine Hogarth that bike lanes mean less emissions and less traffic. Less traffic, less emissions! Christine Hogarth, MPP of Etobicoke Lakeshore, one of the MPPs most vocally in support of ripping out our bike lanes and passing. Shame!
Close to the 1,000 votes!
Yeah, that's true. I'll get to that later. So next, I want to call up Sophia Hempel, a grade 9 student, who's going to be...
Okay, so yeah, I'm in grade 9. I go to school at Ursula Franklin Academy, and I know that what's currently on the table for Ontario is absurd. Why, I ask, when we are in the middle of a climate emergency, why are we trashing simple solutions? This is a multi-generational, multi-dimensional problem, and nobody has a single answer. But what we do have are brilliant, compassionate thinkers who understand some of the ways that we can satisfy our human needs with a careful balance of our planet. At this point, we should all be saying enough. Enough with oil, enough with the resource exploitation, enough with the everlasting quest for profits that nobody could ever need. Enough with this constant drive for more because there will never be enough. And then our future will suffer the consequences. Bill 212 is not a step forwards, it is 10 steps backwards. We already have bike lanes that support hundreds of thousands of active commuters, and we already have 2 million acres of greenbelt that build up our climate resilience. By taking away these precious resources, we aren't even helping cars. Building new, bigger highways is known to fill in with traffic and new cars that become part of the cycle of self-replenishing gridlock. Doug Ford knows this to be true, and yet he still turns towards empty promises of more wealth. I find this terrifying. Climate change is here, and it's now, and it's already increasing our cost of living. Investments into a habitable Earth should not be seen as financial burdens because we must refuse to put a price tag on human lives. We cannot economically or morally afford to cast this shadow on our future. Thank you.
Yeah, when we say that bike lanes save lives, that's not just through preventing collisions. Bike lanes are saving lives by fighting climate change and reducing air pollution. 600 people die each year in Toronto from air pollution, and thousands are dying each year already from climate change. So really, bike lanes are climate justice. Should we tell Hogarth that? Bike lanes are climate justice. We're good. Many have said that Bill 212 is a distraction from all of Ford's other betrayals of Ontarians. So let's go through those other betrayals really quickly. First off, I'm going to start with Angela Bischoff from Ontario Clean Air Alliance.
Hey everybody! The first thing that Doug Ford did when he got elected in 2018 is cancel 758 renewable energy projects and rip wind turbines out of the ground. And then he proceeded to build new gas plants, ramping up polluting gas power, which was 4% of our grid in 2018, and they're ramping it up to 25% by 2030. Boo! All to back up their massive nuclear plans, which is to spend $177 billion building new and rebuilding old nuclear stations. So not only are they ramping up gas and nuclear, but it's 3 times more expensive than renewable power, wind and solar. So we say, no nukes, no gas, shove that carbon up your... And we're calling for a tripling of wind and solar to reduce our dependency on high cost and polluting nuclear and gas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will now call up Elsa Lam, the Editor-in-Chief at Canadian Architect Magazine.
So the Auditor General put out a report earlier this week, which some of you might have seen, and part of it, 122 pages of that report, were about the Ontario Place redevelopment. So by privatizing Ontario Place and giving away half of it to an Austrian spa company to build a huge indoor water park that nobody asked for, we were supposed to be saving money. It turns out that this project is going to cost Ontario's taxpayers upwards of $2.2 billion. The Auditor General's report also confirms what we also suspected, which is the cost of building a new science center that's half the size of the existing one is vastly more than just fixing up the science center. Yeah, and now finally, you I've been reading the footnotes. Finally, the Ford government is starting to acknowledge that this project, this new Ontario Science Centre, is not going to be open until at least 2029. So they're pushing it back like 1 year at a time. That's our kids who are going to be missing out for years of their childhood, if not their entire childhood, on that kind of educational experience and that kind of science education that helps them understand the climate crisis that we're going through and understand how we can be acting collectively and through all kinds of means to mitigate that and to alleviate that.
They also cut down 850 trees for the stupid parking lot for the spa.
No, that's for the spa itself, but yes, and then they're cutting down more. The total number of trees that will be remaining at Ontario Place is now only 8% of what was there originally. So, all right, back to you, Alex.
Thank you. I will now call up Molly Fines, another high school student.
So I'm here speaking on behalf of Ocean, who could not make it today, but took the time to pass on this very, very, very important knowledge. So my name is Molly, and I'm here to speak out against the devastating impact Doug Ford's government has had on our education system. But let's be clear, current and future students' education is at stake. Since taking office in 2018, Ford has slashed education funding by over $1,200 per student. That's $1,200 less for our kids learning, their resources, and their support. These cuts aren't just numbers on a page. They mean overcrowded classrooms, fewer support staff and educational assistants, reduced access to mental health services, and canceled programs and diminished learning opportunities, which as a student I am seeing every single day in my class, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well. The Ford government tries to hide these cuts with smoke and mirrors, claiming historic investments while actually removing funding. They've even cut $47 million from education in their latest budget. These cuts are forcing school boards to warn off layoffs. We're facing the potential loss of 7,000 education workers across Toronto. That's 7,000 fewer people supporting our education, and now we need them more than ever. It is so important that we do not stand idly by while Ford dismantles our public education system. We and the future students deserve better. They deserve a government that truly invests in their future, not one that shortchanges them at every single turn. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lastly, I will welcome up Alex Adams from the Ontario Health Coalition. Alex here? Oh, hello.
Hi, everyone. Yes, it's difficult to summarize what Ford is doing to cut public services in general. But before the election, Doug Ford promised that he was not going to privatize healthcare. But, of course, what has actually been happening since the election is entirely different. The Ford government has been stealthily privatizing public health care by doing two things. One is continuing the decades-long defunding of the public health care system and underfunding of the public health care system, while at the same time claiming to do the opposite. I mean, the reality is that every successive government has to increase somewhat the spending on healthcare, but the spending on healthcare has not kept up with increases in population growth as well as inflation, which we all know has been huge of late. So this year, one of the things that has been happening is that there's been a crisis, the continuing crisis in ERs, with a lot of ER closures happening in the province in a lot of communities. Part of this is a result of the fact that the government has held the funding for public hospitals for most of the year and suddenly dumped all the funding in the last quarter of the year, which has created some of the crisis. And also the crisis in funding has been due to the fact that they have owed money to healthcare workers because of the fact that Bill 124 was struck down, so they owed back pay to workers. So the Ford government can say that they've increased money to the healthcare system without actually having increased funding, because that was only to to pay for the error that they made in passing Bill 124 in the first place. And the other thing that's happened is that private hospitals have been getting a 212% increase in funding at the same time this year, and that they've been paying double the amount to private clinics for the same surgeries that are also offered in public hospitals as they do to the public hospitals for the same procedures. And that's not even counting the fact that many private clinics are now being caught red-handed in doing extra billing to patients and trying to fool people who are going for procedures at those clinics into thinking they have to pay extra for upgrades and extra tests and so on, which are unnecessary. And that's only counting what they've privatized. The private clinics mostly at this point are dealing in cataract surgeries, and the legislation that the Ford government passed last year is allowing private hospitals to do more procedures for the so-called easier patients, which means they will not be taking more complex patients, which are the ones that are going to, of course, be left to get care in the public healthcare system. So none of this, all of this combines, and there's a lot of other things in the other parts of the healthcare system, such as long-term care, that I don't even have time to discuss. So basically, the message is that Ford is cutting public health care and increasing the money going to private services in order to weaken the public health care system, and we all need to stand up and fight this.
Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about what's next. So it's clear that we cannot have another term of Doug Ford as Premier, right? And so that is also going to need to be our strategy for fighting Bill 212, because, I mean, I'm going to say that the Ford government is probably not going to reverse Bill 212, but any sane government would. So we need to be looking forward to the next election. There's speculation he's going to call an election early next year. So we need to be gearing up for that and getting ready to boot him out of that office. And so we need to be preparing for that. We need to be preparing to donate, volunteer, vote strategically. And you know, I'm 17. I can't vote. But what that means is I need to get all of you guys to volunteer, get out there, and get people voting for me, because I can't vote. And neither can most of the people organizing this from Fridays for Future, even though it's our future on the line. So I don't know about, yeah, we should do that. But though Ford may not reverse Bill 212 in its entirety, we can still stop him ripping out bike lanes and building Highway 413 as separate battles. And Fridays for Future has a few plans developing, so please follow us on Instagram and join our mailing list so you can get updates on that. The Instagram at Fridays for Future TO, and the mailing list you can find at fridaysforfutureto.org. We're going to be in a bit of a planning phase until the holidays, and then we're getting ready for more actions in January. So some of the actions we're working on planning a quick response to if and when they actually start removing the bike lanes. So if we get enough people to sign on to our mailing list and follow our Instagram, then immediately after they start ripping them out, we can send out information to a bunch of people and be there the next day protesting. So stay tuned for that. We might also be planning a kind of theatrical action called a die-in or more rides, but just stay tuned for more information. And we might also potentially be getting training for using nonviolent direct action in this campaign. Please sign on to our mailing list if you're interested in doing that. Sign on to our mailing list, fridaysforfutureto.org. My paper is falling apart right now. But right, I think next is Saskia and Naomi, who are going to do another performance. Yeah.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Before I get started, I'd just like to say thank you to my friends Alex and Naomi. Molly, he's also here too. They come from a school called Bloor Collegiate, at least some of them do. And I want them to thank me for inviting me to speak here today. As a 17-year-old, I attend Central Technical School, and the vast majority of our student population bikes and takes transit to school. That Bloor Street and Harvard are lifelines for our students, teachers, and faculty to get to school every single day. Bathurst subway station is often overcrowded due to the number of students coming from 3 different high schools, funneling into one subway station. Ever since I started biking to school it was this year in January, it has been an absolute game changer. My family has been able to save thousands of dollars on my TTC fare. I no longer have the risk of getting fined for fare evasion because I often cannot afford the fare. These bike lanes support our transit systems. They allow people like me to go a lot farther. If I needed to make a grocery pickup at Main Street Station, I could have 3 ways to get home. I can take the subway, the streetcar, or even choose to bike back to Ossington Station. Uber delivery drivers, the ones on those e-bikes every single day out in the brisk -degree weather, getting your ramen from the place on Yonge Street, are battling this weather, whether there's bike lanes or not. And how do they get into Toronto from suburbs? They use Go Transit. Now, if you or someone in your household or someone you know has used a TTC within the last month, can I hear some noise, please? Biking isn't the only way that Torontonians get into Toronto. I think we can visibly know that here. Some people here don't even own bikes, let alone even have access to a car. They take the bus, they take the subway. And it is with with the combined daily usage of GO Transit and TTC, over 3 million cars are off our streets. So, I want to ask the province, why do you think it is a good idea to spend our taxpayers' money to build a spa on a public park, to demolish a science center, when what we should be doing is funding transit, funding bike lanes? The government in 28 years has not pinched a dime into the TTC, and now it is experiencing a budget wall in 5 years, which means massive service cuts, almost no subway service after 7 p.m. What does that mean for the rest of us? We can't get home. Yes, don't even get me started on that. The Eglinton Crosstown is 5 years approaching delayed, and we have no words, no answers on when and where that's going to be finished. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay, so we're going to do a few more chants and then end off with a couple more little performances. Okay? Every bike is one less car! Every bike is one less. Or if there's enough people still here, we're going to have another group ride. Still good to do that? Group ride back. That's just going to be after the performances. So just going to have a couple of songs. Yeah. So much for coming, even in the freezing cold. We'll be going back for the cyclists. You see a guy with his hand raised over there. We're doing a group bike ride back to Bloor. Yeah, thank you all so much for coming. And a bit about Fridays for Future as well. We're a youth climate activism organization. We're like mostly high school kids. If you know any high schoolers or like youth in general who might want to join, let them know. Have a good day, everyone. Don't skip the note!
Thank you.